Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Gayle Fuguitt.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's just a thrill to be back on day 2 of the world's largest audience measurement conference. I wanted to quickly recap yesterday. The morning was spent on programmatic buying. Of course, the afternoon was spent on big data. We were able to spend some time with Bob Lord right at the top and hear his talk about convergence. And then, of course, we had the great debate, which is getting rave reviews. And I've been told that Dave is going to actually charge me if he does it again at our next conference. So, and then in the afternoon, I think we had really some interesting keynote speeches, some really great papers punctuated by the Irwin Efron Award. And congratulations again to Bill Harvey for that. That afternoon session was all about translating big data into better business decisions, because that's what we really want to be all about. We don't just want to be counting and measuring, we want to be creating better business decisions. So some of you maybe weren't able to be here yesterday. I'm going to just recap what we're considering to be our code red alert. And you can think of it as a red letter day, or you can think of it as a red alert. But here are the facts. Marketers are being held to higher standards of accountability, over 70% of them. And this is from our survey with 65 major industry leaders that accounted for over $50 billion in advertising spending. There's a dramatic increase in analytics spending that's predicted at 72% over the course of the next 3 years. And this is hundreds of billions of dollars that's going to be pouring into the industry. And this is our opportunity to help direct, the measurement mandate is our opportunity to help direct these resources to doing measurement better, because the feedback says that we have not kept up with the consumer in terms of the way we're measuring. We found ourselves there 30 years ago, and the advent of the internet, consumers were on the internet, our research tools were not. Today, consumers are on their mobile phone, they're on their tablet, they're on their television, but what is TV today? It's on multiple screens. Our metrics have to keep up with the consumer, and so we consider this to be the measurement mandate. This is our point of view at the ARF. It's really a leadership mandate. Every speaker yesterday talked about skills and the skills that are going to be needed to win in the future. And we're attenuating ourselves at the ARF on the next generation as well. We have over 80%, over 800 young pros in New York City alone, and across the US we have a couple hundred others that are connected in with us. And it's going to take new skills, because what got you here won't get you there. And so our point of view is that it's going to take speed, agility, experimentation, and collaboration. And today you're going to hear about some unique collaborative platforms, and we're going to have some industry panels that are going to be helping us figure out how to deliver this measurement mandate checklist and our leadership promise from the ARF, which is to get to the right insight for the right decision maker at the right time. And the right decision maker is at the advertiser. And so what we think the checklist is needs to be based on consumer behavior. We need convergent validity, no more black box models. We need to get from the brand to the C-suite. So we need metrics that roll up and down so that you can actually make tactical business decisions with metrics, all the way up to C-suite level portfolio business decisions about how to allocate marketing dollars. And then the right time needs to be decision timed instead of top line timed. And that's going to be a challenge to us in our industry. It's not real time. Real time is all the time. It's when is the decision going to be made? What is the right amount of information to have to make a better business decision? And in order to do this, we're going to have new skills. So we're going to have to be a lot more agile. We're going to have to be able to move ourselves and our resources toward the biggest business opportunities instead of toward the next project on our checklist. We're going to need to listen better. We're going to need to listen to the C-suite. We're going to need to listen to the consumer. We're going to need to be able to collaborate and converge. And then finally, we're going to need to quantify the outcomes where we made better business decisions with specific measurement solutions and be able to showcase and evangelize those. And my goal, and Bob Lord spoke of this yesterday as well, is that actually we will build enough trust and confidence in our industry that at least in small group, collaborative, non-competitive tables, we will be able to actually talk about our failures. because we're not going to be able to improve unless we can get out examples of the things that we're doing across the industry and advance our learning, and then take it to other people's tables, decision tables, in order to advance their learning more quickly. Here's what we're doing at the ARF. We have a cross-platform forum that we've created. These are some of the companies that are members today. Jan Fulgoni is helping lead that forum with Jasper Snyder, who's our EVP of cross-platform. We're going to be in San Francisco in November. We're going to be identifying marketing mix best practices that led to better business decisions. So we're not just going to be talking about models, we're going to be talking about where did great business decisions get made, where did resources get allocated that drove significantly greater levels of sales. And people are going to talk about those successes. They're going to talk about their leadership and what it took to create those successes. And we're going to have a really, I think, important sharing forum. And then we would like to work on establishing a state-of-the-art cross-platform measurement and work on bringing in those insights to that agenda. And then the second piece of original research that's in formulation now, so if this is an area that's intriguing to you, you're interested in participating, please come speak to me or Jasper Snyder. We want to help identify how do you buy advertising across platforms today, and how would that be able to be improved? That's a question that's on a lot of people's minds, and we really believe at the ARF we can convene people across the industry, and we can help identify where measurement successes have been and where there are opportunities to make a difference and help advance our best practices. Now, it's probably not a big insight that collaboration can help lead change, but I want to share with you that this morning we have an unprecedented level of industry collaboration that's going to be on the stage through these panels. And while we all like each other, and the leaders of these various industry groups, well, they're maybe not, but these various groups are on my board of directors, we have agreed that we want to coalesce toward a common agenda. What I want to share with all of you is that the ANA and the 4As actually created the ARF in 1936. So there's a deep history of collaboration and connectivity that goes all the way back over 75 years. And then we're going to be joined today by SIM, the Coalition of Innovative Media Measurement, the IAB, the Media Ratings Council, and who are also on our board of directors, and then also the CRE and Richard Zakon, which is born out of Nielsen's initiatives and Nielsen's clients, is separate from Nielsen, but there's been important mixed modeling work going on there. In another example of important collaborative efforts, I want to also share with all of you, because you may want to apply for this. There's a $100,000 prize pool for charity. There's a 2014 Marketing Analytics Leadership Award, which is recognizing excellence in using analytics to drive marketing ROI. And whereas any one industry group could have offered this, a number of us have gotten together to bring this to the industry to help advance innovation and entrepreneurship in the area of marketing analytics. So our industry group got together, the 4As, the ANA, the IAB, SIM, and the ARF, and we created a measurement mandate SWOT. We went through and we said, what are some successes, what have been some weaknesses, what have been opportunities, and what have been threats? And I'm going to share that with you here in just the next couple of slides quickly. It's a very top-line level view, but it helps explain, I think, and it helps galvanize some of the key areas that we need to be focusing on as we have our panel discussions in just a minute. So in the area of strengths, and we've worked on the language to use here, but this first one is that basically, hey, we've done this before. We ought to be able to measure mobile and digital and social and engagement, because we figured out how to measure television. We have historical success in measuring television. There's also this yesterday with programmatic buying and addressable television, and so many of these great examples. Technology is enabling new forms of targeting that haven't been available in the past. And then we have the MRC. They've done amazing work on viewable ratings and helping in endorse and advance, making sure that we have a checklist of quality. And so we have some important strengths in the industry that we want to make sure that we continue to build on. But our weaknesses are we haven't had centralized leadership in this whole area of measurement. We haven't had enough innovation investment. We've been more precise on the slowest growing touch points. The biggest opportunity is probably in measuring mobile. And our precision on measuring mobile within our mixed models and other analytics isn't as high as it needs to be. And then finally, we've had a low focus on advertisers. So in just a minute, Joan Lewis, who leads research at Procter & Gamble, is going to be leading this panel discussion. And that's putting a stake in the ground here on our stage that we're going to be focused on delivering solutions to the advertisers. So our opportunities are industry leadership, a common cross-platform roadmap, directed technology investment. And if we don't address this and we don't respond to this red letter, code red alert, then we're going to have, at the very least, inefficient dollar allocation. That $100 billion prize of those increased analytics spend is not going to be spent toward generating a greater level of sales. There's a threat of turf. There's a fair amount of competition going on, and competition can be good, but not if it's inhibiting innovation. I think there's something that we need to attenuate ourselves to, especially in an audience like this, which I refer to as David and Goliath. There are a lot of big industry giants, but we want to make sure that the innovative solutions from startups and new inventive technologies get just as much voice and airtime. And then finally, privacy and fraud are things that we have to continue to attenuate ourselves to. So our next steps as far as the joint boards meeting, and this is still in conversation, so this is kind of a blueprint and you're getting a sneak preview. The goal was to create and advance the measurement agenda and declare the next big thing. So first, we're advocating having a common GRP measure across media, and ideally it would be video first, and then we're going to try to move mobile up in the agenda much more quickly. We need to continue to validate impression measurement. This is an advancement of the work that George, Ivie, and the MRC have been doing, and to do it across, in priority order, television, mobile, desktop, digital, and have an agreement on what priority those would be in the industry. And then I've added one that I believe is an invitation to the research and the measurement industry that I spoke of yesterday, which is, I believe, that we have a code red measurement industry mandate for a common ROI effectiveness measure across media. And that's what I want to put my stake in the ground for, that the ARF is going to help bring to the industry. So here we are Tuesday. I'm just going to recap the agenda. This morning is about cross-platform. This afternoon is about ROI. So we have the measurement mandate. We're going to have Joan Lewis come up and moderate our industry panel. We're going to be talking about multi-screen success. She's going to narrate a paper section. And then this afternoon, we have the real treat of hearing on new broken ground research that David Poltrak and Leslie Wood are going to share on the long-term effects of advertising. And as I said yesterday, if I could have answered that for my management, they would have been a lot happier with the work that my group was doing. So I know there are a few people from General Mills. They can take it, run back to Minnesota with it. And then finally, what I'm really delighted for, because it all ends with keeping our seat at the table and leadership skills, is we're going to have Kate Sirkin moderate a panel of industry leaders and advertisers talking about how they keep their seat at the table and what leadership skills they do to earn those experimentation dollars to get into the C-suite and help put analyst presentations together and deliver the kind of leadership that we all want to evangelize and move ourselves forward with, so that when we go back to our desk tomorrow, we not only have new business solutions, but we actually have a new leadership toolkit. Plenty of time for networking, and at the very end of the day, we're actually going to have a small group Make Your Mark session, which is with our young pros and some industry leaders, because at the ARF, we want to continue to evangelize solutions for the next generation. It's critically important. And so, thrilled to have you here. And now, without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce Joan Lewis, who leads global research for Procter & Gamble worldwide. She is an industry thought leader. She's a friend. She's a mentor. She's an ARF board member and she is a spokesperson for the industry for not just what solutions need to be created, but how they can be actually adopted within an organization to create the kind of change. She has a seat at the decision table. She has the ear of the executive wing, something that a lot of us in the room are always trying to figure out how to get. And so I hope you'll join me in welcoming Joan Lewis to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, and thanks to Gayle for inviting me to host part of this morning. This is really a powerhouse morning. We have 2 panels to share with you, and then papers that will be introduced for the 10-minute paper segments, and they are all incredible. So I'm glad everyone's here this morning. I have the pleasure of sharing the stage with leaders across our industry, and you'll see that Gayle has assembled all of the players in the industry who represent industry bodies who are really already addressing this measurement and leadership mandate. So I really appreciate being joined by Nancy Hill, who's President and CEO of the 4As. Thank you. Bob Liodice, President and CEO of ANA. George Ivie, Executive Director and CEO of the Media Ratings Council. Randall Rothenberg, President and CEO of IAB. And best of all, we get Gayle back. So this panel is really about the leadership and measurement mandate that Gayle has spent some time talking about, as have others over the course of yesterday. And we have tremendous and positive challenges in front of us. As Gayle said yesterday, and I believe Bob Lord re-articulated, we have both a measurement challenge and a leadership challenge. And for those of us on the advertiser side of this equation, we have a growth challenge. We feel acutely every day, and I know many of you feel it with me, we need our dollars to work harder. We need to be able to grow our businesses more aggressively. We need to meet consumer needs more effectively, and we need stronger brands to do that. Advertising, through all of the means available to us, are the ways that we do that. These leaders are the people who help bring together the stakeholders of the industry to help make that happen. So we're going to talk for a panel now with this group of people, and then we're going to switch to a panel from some of the same organizations, but really to respond to what are the actual undertakings that are already in place to address the measurement mandate that we have, and how are we going to make them work together, and what do we need to do as the research community to make that happen faster. So our very first challenge for this group is really that we have both a measurement and a leadership mandate, and we have to come together on common metrics. And by common metrics, I mean some of the things that came up yesterday. No black boxes, things that are understandable and recombinable across different providers and different kinds of media. As an advertiser, where most of the funding comes from to source our industry, I need to be able to say, where does that first and last dollar go? And I need to be able to say so across media types, media providers and platforms, and devices. And all of those things have to roll up to something comparable, and we're not really there yet. And we need it in a way that we can explain to people and that people can understand. Because like many of you, it's not good enough if I understand it. I have to have hundreds and thousands of people understand it well enough to take action. So for us to be able to talk in R squared is not enough. It has to be clear. It has to be able to drive decisions. It has to be better and simpler than what our research community would be comfortable with, because we have a lot of people we have to bring along. So that is our challenge. I would say from an advertiser standpoint, the challenge that I want this group to address is we have to come together to ask for that in simpler, more consistent terms. And from a research provider standpoint, we need you to be able to put together things that are comparable, recombinable, and understandable. I need to be able to look across everything. The dollars come from the same places. And the last thing I would say, certainly from an advertiser standpoint, is the metric we have to be aiming for, the success metric, has to be sales. nothing else matters. They're indicators, they're leading indicators, they're wayfinders. We love those things. I am the biggest champion for insights you will find. But we've got to be able to predict sales. Nothing else really matters when the initial challenge for me is to help my company grow. So I would like to turn it to my esteemed colleagues here and ask each of them to address if that's even the mandate that you see for your organization and what the biggest barriers are that you are encountering. Now, yesterday we had a debate. This is not a debate. There's actually incredible collaboration here. But after the debate yesterday, every single person I ran into later in the day said, "You're leading a panel tomorrow. You need to use that timer." So I have to really thank my colleagues who have been incredibly good sports about adopting a timer approach as of this morning. So I will ask your forgiveness. We're all among friends. We've asked people to try to do this. And the only reason we did it was not to foster the debate environment, but because we have so many incredible leaders here to speak, and we want to be sure that we have an opportunity for each of them to be able to make their point and be heard. So that I'm asking you to bear with us as we go to a timer approach. So the first thing we're going to do is ask each person to speak for 2 minutes on that question. Is this the primary mandate that you see? And what are the barriers or the biggest barrier you want to identify for us? And I'm going to ask our timer person to set it for 2 minutes and turn it to Nancy first.
Two questions, right?
Well, definitely it is the mandate. We just had our joint board meeting with the ANA and the IAB just about a little less than a month ago, and it was very clear coming out of that board meeting that this is something that the industry desperately wants and needs. I think some of the obstacles that we face are on the surface level. There are so many competing measurement opportunities out there that we need to figure out a way to get them to collaborate with us as well as us collaborating amongst each other. That's one. Two, I think that people have gotten very used to doing things the way that they've always done them. And even though it takes, it's much more time consuming, we found workarounds as opposed to finding a streamlined way in. And from an agency perspective, being able to streamline anything is critical given the nature of the margins getting squeezed. So getting it to a place where it's a lot more apparent, a lot faster, is something that's really important to the agencies. The other thing I'll say is that I think that we've gotten a little bit complacent probably in the last 12 months as an industry in that we got to viewability and I think people felt like, job done. But that's not the case. We need to get it much deeper and much more fluid across the platforms rather than just assuming that this is the be-all and end-all to cross-platform measurement. And I think making sure that we've got leadership involved in those discussions and not just delegating it down is going to be a critical part of how we move this thing forward. And I'm done, and it's 20 seconds left.
Good job. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
And we can reset then for 2 minutes to ask Bob to comment on the same thing, and feel free to respond as well.
Thank you, Joan, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we must do the measurement mandate. There's no alternative. If you believe in the axiom, you can't manage what you can't measure, then we can't proceed forward without the measurement mandate. Now, what does this mean? This means that we do have to get on the same page. This means that we have to be aligned with the types of metrics and standards that we all agree with, and that cuts across every fragment of the industry. Look, this is all about making better marketing decisions, which translates to Joan's goal of improving sales. If we do not improve the decision-making capability, we cannot progress. And we cannot progress if we do not subscribe to the measurement mandate. Now, the key challenge that we see out of all of this is that we're not aligned. We've been operating in different silos, in different fragments. We have not necessarily worked together well, which is the reason why we're all here on stage right now, because we have been working together. Viewability was just the tip of the iceberg, where the ANA, MRC, the 4As, and the IAB worked together to ensure that we had a common approach to doing business. And the outcome was substantial. Together, we invested millions, and the outcome is that we're generating billions. And that's just a surrogate for the opportunity that we have in front of us. So if you believe in that, and those are hard, cold facts, then we have tremendous opportunity to be able to work together and to advance the measurement mandate.
Thank you. That's
You
great.
beat me.
George?
Right. Well, the MRC not only believes in this direction, we've been living it in the details for 3 or 4 years now. We've been working in detail with the principals of the 3MS group, trying to implement some of the general directions that they've set forward. We were strong participants in even setting those directions based on our industry knowledge. The issue that we have is that we don't just deal in the conceptual, we deal in the real details. So how do you measure a viewable impression? The work that had to be done to set the standard, the work that had to be done to get the vendors to adopt the standard, the work that had to be done to reconcile the vendors together and give them guidance on how to align with each other so that we can all have a little credibility in this effort. That train's left the station. We're not done. We are looking to implement video viewability the end of this month. We're now have already kicked off a project to study and write GRP standards for digital, which involves a process very similar to 3MS. But then it's going to be expanded even broader, and I'd call out to all of you in this room because we're going to be writing a cross-platform GRP standard. So almost no matter what measurement area or media area you're in, you could have an important voice in this process. We're open to that. We literally have 150 organizations participating in that process already, and we're inviting more. But these details, we're working on trying to move them forward. Are we going to be perfect? No. Are we going to make everyone happy? I don't think so. But we believe in the mandate. We're trying to move it forward from a measurement and granularity perspective.
Thank you, George. Randall?
So just to start, I don't believe, Joan, as I said before, that sales is the ultimate measure. I think there are multiple goals for measurement. And we all use the phrase, what are the metrics that matter? And what matters changes from occasion to occasion. For different campaigns, for different instances, we're going to want to be able to measure awareness appropriately. We're going to be able to, on others, measure the increases in brand equity and pricing power. So I think we need to have a somewhat more expansive view of what the goals are. And overall, I would say, if I wanted to put an umbrella goal on why this measurement mandate matters, we want to bring truth into marketing. For too long, for too many generations, research has been the handmaiden of the enterprise leaders. We were there as window dressing to be able to validate others' conclusions. This is an opportunity to actually bring truth and data to all the various components of marketing and the enterprise. So this is a very big opportunity. What are the obstacles? Nancy, Bob, George really mentioned them. There's not much to add. I'd say the biggest obstacles are we need real leadership engagement across the enterprise and across the various components of the marketing media ecosystem. Real leadership and engagement. Our biggest obstacle within that is fragmentation. Used to be a fairly simple value chain. We now have agencies split among creative and media. We have marketers working with 10 or 20 agencies where they used to work with 1 or 2. We have ad technology companies that have inserted themselves into the process. So we have a lot of complexity to manage to get to truth.
Thank you, Randall. I don't think I've ever been called window dressing before.
Sorry?
I don't think I've ever been called window dressing before. And if I were that...
I'm the son of a lifelong researcher, so...
And I think we'd be a lot more popular if we were window dressing. But thank you. Gayle.
Okay, so I think I like to speak about the biggest barrier and what I think is the biggest opportunity. So I think the biggest barrier is collaboration, which is actually inhibiting speed. because I think there are great things going on out in the industry, and I think some people actually are pretty close to having it right, but they don't want to share it because they consider it to be a proprietary asset and actually something that's helping them advance versus the competition. And so I think that if we could get different industries and across industries is critically important, because in the old days, the people that tended to lead out were in CPG. But what I see in my role now is there's amazing advancement going on in other industries, in healthcare and pharma, in the financial industry. And so I think the opportunity is to get collaborative, non-competing groups together to say, here was my business issue, here's how I solved it, and for people to actually understand that if they're willing to share with each other, that will become a competitive advantage. So I actually see collaboration as a competitive advantage. And if people can see that as a competitive advantage, they are going to get access to that between $100 and $200 billion in increased analytics spending that is going to come about in the next 3 years. And the scale of that relative to, the most generous research industry numbers say that 40 billion, 50 billion maybe, the most generous, is being spent in research today. So the idea of being able to have the opportunity to have access to those dollars that are going to analytics and do that by taking advantage of these collaborative platforms and where best practices are taking place. We've never, ever had that kind of opportunity in the past.
I would agree, and actually bringing this group together is a great testament to that, Gayle. The second question I wanted to ask this group to address is really where you see some of the conflicts or some of the places where we're not as well connected as we need to be. Now, the flip side of that is probably opportunity as well. And I wanted to ask Randall to speak to that first, because you had actually started to address some of those in your comments already. We have a lot of different divisions of the industry. The industry has a lot more stakeholders now. What are some of the conflicts that we have that are keeping us from moving faster? Well, I think there's incredible progress in places. I don't think any of us would say that we have moved fast enough in the eyes of our colleagues. And we were going to do a minute timing on these. Sorry.
Yeah, I started referencing it. There's just a lot more fragmentation and a lot more specialization. So it's more difficult to get people either within the enterprise and certainly across enterprises, focused on what matters. I mean, we're faced every day with just a cacophony of information and ideas, white noise, and a common phrase that's used in our industry a lot is, how do we tell the signal from the noise? We need to get people involved at every level across the enterprise, within the enterprise and across enterprises, in order to get consistency in measurement and in order to be able to advance the Making Measurement Make Sense agenda, from viewability, where we're at today, to GRPs, where we've begun the work, to everything that follows on that.
Thank you. George, what are some of the conflicts you see, and maybe the flip side of those also being opportunities?
Yeah, so again, I think I speak at maybe a different level because I work at a different level, not necessarily conceptually on all this stuff. But the day we announced display viewability standard being released, I charted that I got a little over 500 emails. 350 of them were, great job. 150 or so, maybe 200 were, I'd like to kill you. So, and as a paraphrase. So one of the biggest conflicts that we deal with is the reality of competing interests. So we have, buyers and sellers, which is a very commonly understood, competing interests. But then we also have measurement services that compete with each other, technologies, emerging, legacy measurement, the way we did business for the last 50 years in certain media. We want to keep transporting that forward. So we try to reconcile all these things together. Ooh, I got a buzzer, the first one. That's really our barrier.
Thank you. Nancy.
Well, I think George touched on it, and Gayle mentioned collaboration is key to making this work. And when you've got the measurement companies squaring off against each other, and you have some of the online platforms squaring off against each other, you're not really advancing the notion of trying to figure out how we're going to do the cross-platform measurement, because they each have their proprietary methods. I'm all for competition, and I think that's important. And I think you can add a layer of proprietary information on top of some standards, but we've got to get to some standards that are a minimum, if nothing else. And until we get those competing factions to a place where they're willing to share, we're not really going to be able to advance this notion very far, because we can't get at those things that are common across platforms and across the measurement companies themselves.
Yep, I would agree. Gayle.
I think it's actually how budgets are being allocated and how roles are being defined in the advertisers, because roles are really evolving. There are data scientists and marketing analytics people, and the question within the advertiser is, are they competing with the researcher? And so when I talk to people that are in the research industry, they say, like, who should I talk to at this organization? Should I talk to the researcher? It came up in one of the presentations yesterday. Should I be trying to find these data scientists? Should I go to the market, to the CMO? And so I think that while there's so much confusion about where those resources are being allocated and who's in charge of them within the advertiser organization, it's very difficult for the people that are here today to actually go and bring their best solutions to the advertisers and get that work to land quickly and effectively toward driving more sales growth, equity growth, better pricing, better value, the end goals.
Thank you. Bob.
I'm going to turn to the audience and suggest something. If you were to be building a business from scratch, you would ensure that you got all of your resources together to be successful at building that business. If we were to make that same correlation for the measurement industry, you'd recognize that we have, to use the words we've said before, a lot of fragmentation, unaligned resources that suboptimize the capability of the measurement industry. It's imperative that with all the smart people that we have in this room and throughout the industry is to be able to think about this as a unified business proposition to optimize the measurement industry. The key obstacle that we have is that they are not aligned, that we are not on the same page. We have not learned to work collaboratively to build the best business proposition for the measurement industry, and that's the opportunity.
Thank you. So we kind of have a tale of two cities here, because we really have a stage and a boardroom filled with people who are collaborating to a large degree. We have unbelievable alliances being formed in the industry across different parts, different kinds of media, different kinds of measurement. We have the advertising agencies, the CMOs, the collective standards industry, the digital industry, and the research industry all on the stage calling for the same things. We should be seeing a ton of collaboration, and we are. The flip side of that is the complexity and the speed of change around us means we're probably not moving fast enough, and we're not getting focused enough on few enough things that we can knock out in sequence. So what we have is a lot of collaboration in 3MS with the most rigorous set of choices point by point that are being progressed one at a time. But we probably need to be able to move that faster, and we need to invest all of the collective innovation that's represented here and by these other parts of the industry in things that are in fact new. So what we have now with some of the conflict around, is viewability good enough, or is that not good enough? We need to be able to settle on some things and move on. And many of us here in the room are the people who, to Randall's earlier point, company leadership looks to decide, is this good enough? Can we move on? Is this proprietary, something we have to protect? Or is this something that's better off to be a common currency across the industry? And I think we do have a significant opportunity ahead of us to take these incredible collaborations that have taken place over 3 or 4 years and figure out how to create greater synergy across and more consistency across, representing all the different parts of the industry. And I would argue, which I think Gayle has opened with yesterday, that the ARF and the research industry are really key players, if not the key players, to make that happen. Because the people who each of our stakeholders look to be the arbiters of what is good, what is quality, and what is sufficient, and what is proprietary, and what would be better off to be common currency, really are all of us here.
Can I say something to
Yes.
that, Joan? I mean, one of the things that I've been struck by a lot, and I said to the son of a lifelong researcher, is that if you look at the history of broadcasting, the role of the academy and industry were aligned completely. Broadcasting would not have developed in this country had not academic researchers joined with industry researchers essentially to invent that industry. And when you think of the greatness of research, you think historically of people like Lazarsfeld and Katz and others. I'm struck that there has been a divide as the digital world has progressed between scholarship and industry. There needs to be more publishing. There needs to be more exposure of scholarly research and industry research to scrutiny by peers so we can develop not just the standards, but also the ideas that become currency that help us get on the same page. And I would love this group to be able to be leaders in that and kind of exposing ideas to the world for scrutiny by others.
And I think that's a terrific forerunner to actually then settling on which of those ideas we need to go coalesce around. Thank you. Now, we have this great opportunity of having an additional panel to talk about this. So we're going to transition to that second panel. And many of the people on that panel are members of these same groups representing the same kind of stakeholders that we have here. So I want to really thank Nancy, Bob, George, Randall, and Gayle. And we're going to welcome our next panel. This is a great opportunity because this is a deeper dive than we can often get in our big events like this, where we have the next panel coming to effectively address, we have an industry mandate. What are we doing about it? And I know that, at least for me, and I suspect for many of you, it is really hard to keep track of what all the acronyms are and what everybody's doing. So we're going to have a chance to get a little bit of an update, but then also to ask some questions of the people who are leading not just the mandate part of it, but the actual research and development part of it. So I'd like to ask you to help join me in welcoming to the stage this great panel. We're going to start with Jane Clark from SIM. Thank you, Jane. Jasper Snyder from the ARF. Cheryl Main from the IAB. Richard Zakon from CRE. And Bill Dugan from the ANA. And George is making a repeat appearance. Thank you. And our great stage people remembered to bring out the extra chair. Thank you, gentlemen. Because really, you play on both sides of this. So I'd really like to thank all of you for coming to this kind of panel as well. And they've been equally good sports about saying that they would use the timer. So I appreciate your flexibility from everyone. And that has been helpful for us to be able to hear from everybody and hear what each organization's point of view is. Now, as I said, these people represent some of the same organizations we've just spoken with. But these are the people who are leading the nuts and bolts of what are we going to do about this and what are we doing right now? And where are we already making progress? So I was going to turn to each of you and ask you to give us, in your 2 minutes, an update on what it is you're already accomplishing, and then what is the biggest barrier that you're encountering to making faster progress. And I think I'll start with Jane, just because that's easy. Thank you. Jane?
Okay, great. Well, SIM, the Coalition for Innovative Media Measurement, we completely welcome this measurement mandate with greater industry collaboration to develop, effective solutions for cross-platform measurement. Since basically this has been our mission for the last 5 years, which is to drive innovation in audience measurement for television and cross-platform media. So our member companies are both sellers and buyers, including advertisers, and they're the end users of media measurement. So we're like an R&D think tank group that partners with any relevant research or technology vendor to develop, to test, to implement tools for 3 primary areas: planning cross-platform campaigns, measuring the exposure, the buying tools that we need, and to evaluate the impact, the effectiveness, the ROI of cross-platform ads. And so I'll mention two of our projects that are essential building blocks for a cross-platform measurement system. First, measuring unduplicated reach and frequency across platforms. This is critical. We need to have as many media as possible measured within the same measurement system or connected measurement systems on the same units of analyses and reported in the same time period if we want to have the basis for a cross-platform GRP standard. Now, to do this, we need measurement for both ads and content at the individual person level with a large enough hybrid and census type of system to enable deduplication across all the platforms for any target audience and any combination of media properties. So together with ComScore, we're engaged in a phase 2 pilot test of Project Blueprint with 10 media companies, 3 cross-platform ad campaigns. Blueprint was originally developed by SIM member ESPN, and it's a system for measuring unduplicated reach and frequency for ads and content across 5 platforms: TV, radio, computer, smartphone, tablets, and 3 media types. Sorry, video, audio, and text.
Since this group was flexible enough for the panel, I think we ought to let you finish your sentence, so thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Jasper, speaking for the ARF, where you've really stepped into some additional coordination roles here.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Joan. I think within the great umbrella of the ARF, I think we're having a role in collaborating with all the organizations. I think we should stress that point, that this is a really important time for the industry, and it's great that we've all come together here. Within that overarching rubric, however, I think there are 2 very clear roles for the ARF. First of all is to showcase and evangelize success. And to the points you were making in the first panel, Joan, I think that's business success. There is a place, obviously, for showcasing research techniques per se. There's also a fundamental requirement or mandate, if you will, for the ARF to showcase business success. Because I think necessarily having people understand how business success is driven will, in fact, coalesce and drive metrics together. Events like this, for example, you're going to see some fantastic content showcasing business success this morning and this afternoon. Gayle mentioned the forum in San Fran on the 13th of November. We're going to be looking at best practices in terms of cross-platform exposure measurement, how that's driven success, and also mix modeling and attribution modeling and impact measurement, basically, both for stable brands and for problem brands. So if people would like to find me afterwards, we can talk about if you've had examples of business success that you're able to share, either in a broad basis or on a sort of non-competitive basis, we'd love to hear from you. The second piece, as well as showcasing success, is to answer unanswered questions, basically. So just to rewind to some of the language we were talking about before, there's measurement and there's leadership, right? The first part I'm just talking about now is the measurement piece. The leadership piece, I think there's a little bit of lack of clarity as to how organizationally success is enabled. So what we want to do, Gayle mentioned in her presentation briefly, is to put forward some original research on the way that organizations companies are organized so as to enable success. The research that Gayle mentioned earlier on showed there's a very large disconnect, in fact, between mixed modeling, attribution modeling, and so on, and the decision-making process. So we want to try and align those things.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thanks, Jasper. Cheryl, speaking for the IAB.
Thank you very much. Where's my timer?
Oh.
Okay, here we go.
So what is it you're already doing? Because I know there's a ton of progress.
We've made tremendous progress. We've already heard about 3MS, making measurement make sense. You know that it was put together by the IAB, the ANA, and the 4As. And it is no small miracle that we have gone from a served ad impression to a viewable ad impression. We have required the collaboration of ad technology, of research, of ad ops, of sales leaders, of CMOs, and we managed to do it. So I think the biggest piece of progress besides concrete, viewable currency is the fact that we got the attention of everyone across all disciplines, across all the suites of the businesses to come together and say, digital measurement is absolutely critical to all of us. Moreover, it has to work for brands. This was not about DR. The digital media business has conquered DR to a great extent. What it was about was, how does it work for brands? How does it work with other media? And I think that what we have accomplished is tremendous on multiple levels. We couldn't have done it without many people in this room, George Ivie. We have also begun the work with the MRC and the industry on GRP standards, cross-platform standards. What is little known, because it gets a little lost in all of these other things, we've already put a stake in the ground with some really good thinking on what constitutes engagement in a cross-platform world. And we did a paper, and I don't know if Betsy's here. If she is, thank you, Betsy. She helped us author a paper on what is engagement in a digital world across platforms. And now we have to get together and start coming up with those metrics. But most of all, the message I want to bring about success is it takes a village. You're all part of that village, and I think what we did with 3MS is we assembled all the villagers. So thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. I think there's a lot of village enthusiasm there. Richard, you represent the CRE.
I do. I want to first start by thanking the ARF. I have about a dozen of my NYU students here at the event because ARF offered a deep discount. So if any of you are concerned about the future of our industry, it's in good hands. They have a homework exercise to collect business cards, so meet with them. Regarding the CRE conducts empirical research on audience measurement, research on methodology. We're funded by Nielsen. There are 4 projects we're doing in the space of topics we're discussing here. One is a primer on big data for those who might have found yesterday's discussions inaccessible. This will help move that forward. A couple pieces on cross-platform. One is a couple of ethnographies that GFK is conducting for us, looking at the interaction of screens, how people actually behave with screens. The idea is you need to understand what the consumer's actually doing to improve measurement. There's a third project, which is cross-platform, which is a white paper on aligning metrics across platform, which is the heart of what we're discussing here and how we go about doing it. We're working with Howard Horowitz Associates on that. We will be going out in the next couple months. We've completed a white paper summarizing the literature. We're going out to conduct interviews with about 50 people, most of whom are probably in this room, the purpose of which is to build a research agenda. The CRE is in a good position. We have funds available actually to conduct research. So we'll be deciding what kind of research to conduct, and it's good that the measurement mandate's being put forth. And the final project, and I'm not going to steal Dave Poltrak's thunder, is an ROI study that Dave's going to announce early this afternoon. Do I have 20 seconds? I'll save them for later. Have a good morning.
Thanks. Bill.
Good morning. I'm Bill Duggan. I'm with the ANA representing the advertiser point of view. And one of the first things we did was actually take a step backwards to better understand advertiser concerns and perspective on the whole issue of cross-platform and more specifically multi-screen advertising. You know, three key findings that we found from some recent research is that advertiser spending on multi-screen campaigns is exploding. Whether you believe these numbers or not, in 2013, advertisers allocated about 20% of dollars. In 3 years, it'll be 50%. So that's huge. The single biggest issue that keeps advertisers up at night regarding multi-screen campaigns is measurement. And they want simplicity of metrics. They want one set of metrics versus a variety of metrics. So we have been a key catalyst and driver in the whole measurement mandate group that has gotten together. It's the advertisers' money. We think that it's very important to have more advertisers step up and be an active voice in that. We've been happy to be invited to Richard's group and working with the CRE, Cross-Platform Measurement Program. We have a relaunched Research and Measurement Committee. I am delighted that Gayle Fuguitt of ARF agreed to be co-chair of that, kind of breaking a mold. Usually we have marketers. Her fellow co-chair is Jeff Haleko from Kimberly-Clark, a guy that's not really a research guy, but he's a media guy with a passion for research, so we're delighted with that. And the whole issue of measurement runs in our veins. It's not limited to media or cross-platform, although that's key, but we're active in initiatives including procurement, sponsorship. You know, again, it runs in our veins, is active in just about everything we do.
Thank you, Bill. And George, from the MRC standpoint, can you tell us what you're already working on and any barriers that you're seeing there?
Sure. The MRC, outside looking in, is a fairly simple organization. We only try to do two things. The most important and largest business cycle we have, if you will, is conducting audits of measurement services. So in this area, we're actually already engaged in auditing companies that do cross-platform and measure digital GRPs and cross-platform GRPs. Some good examples of that are OCR, VCE, and Active GRP, a Google product, which are under audit. So our members, we have about 150 member organizations, can participate in those audits. And that is a powerful, it's hard to underestimate or understate, that it is a very powerful mechanism for changing and improving research and directing research. The second, and a growing aspect of our organization, which I talked about on the first panel, is setting standards. At first, we were kind of doing it as a hobby. Every once in a while, we would try to work on setting standards. Now there's increasing demand. We're a fairly small organization. We have way more standard-setting projects being requested of us than we can actually do. So we've even set up a committee of our board, which is far-reaching, multimedia-type committee, marketers, buyers and sellers, all kinds of things, to help prioritize our standard-setting efforts. And we're dealing with writing cross-platform standards. As Cheryl said, we've already kicked that project off. But under the surface, we're also trying to equalize practices across media. You can write all the standards you want till you're blue in the face, but until you go out and actually deal with the measurement organizations and improve their practices, make them more granular, make them more comparable, then you're not going to be ultimately successful. And we're working on that through the standard setting and auditing process.
Thank you, George. Perfect time.
That was before the buzzer, technically.
Beautifully done. So let me ask you all to think for a minute about putting a finer point on this need and what we need next. We have the leaders of the research community here, and we represent a lot of different parts of the research community from a lot of different stakeholder views. And I don't know about any of you, but I have had a very hard time keeping straight all of the different activities that are happening across the different industry forums, et cetera. And I have some things that I'd love help on. But what I think we could put a finer point on to turn back to this group is, what do you need from us? What is the research community either not doing enough of, or getting in our way, or getting in the way of the kind of convergence that you're looking for? Although there are a lot of you looking for it. So there's kind of there's two sides to that question. But for this audience, what's the biggest single thing we should be doing, either in our collaboration as a community or back in our home companies? What's the biggest single thing you need from us? Because we need to be able to walk away and do something. Advocating for collaboration is not good enough. We all have to go back and meet our business partners and be able to say, this is what we're going to do to make our businesses grow faster and to build stronger brands. What do you see that we're not doing enough of, or that we need to do differently? I'm going to ask Bill to go first.
I think we need more leaders to step up. And I'll particularly challenge the advertising, the marketer community, that this needs to be more of an urgent priority. Everybody's busy. Everybody's got stuff that they need to do today or tomorrow to drive their business ahead. This measurement mandate affects our future, and I really feel that we need more advertisers to play a role and have an active interest. I want to particularly thank three from A&A, the co-chairs of our Media Leadership Committee, Rex Conklin of the Home Depot and Colleen Milway of JP Morgan Chase have been very active, as has Jeff Haleko, who I mentioned a little while ago with Kimberly Clark. But for advertisers, it's not my agency will do this for me. I pay somebody to do this. Certainly, your agency has a key role, but hey, for advertisers, it's your money, so you need to take an active stake in this and step up, advertisers, please.
Thanks, Bill. George, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to echo kind of what Bill said, because I remember 4 or 5 years ago, Bob Liodice and the A&A put out a memo saying, hey, marketers would really like discrete commercial measurement in television. I took that memo, I put it on my desk, I thought about it, I pursued it with measurement services, trying to decide how to attack that, making meter measurement more granular, ensuring that we're trying to set the foundation for movement in that direction. And I think that's indicative of really what we need. We need very strong, clear direction. What really helps MRC is to understand what some of the key priorities are. Then we can deal with setting standards. We can deal with modifying vendor practices and encouraging best practices. We can do that in a technical, straightforward, and fair manner that preserves competition and good practices. So,
Thank you.
Cheryl.
I would echo the call to action on the part of marketers, but I would